Hello SONiC lovers, welcome to the channel Gone. Today I'll show you how to configure spine leaf topology using asymmetric VxLAN BGP EVPN fabric. In this topology, VNI will be L2VNI and no L3VNI will be used. In this topology, we'll use 3 leaf switches, leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3 and 2 spine switches, spine 1 and spine 2. Here we can see it is a spine leaf topology, which is also known as data center topology. Here we can see we will keep all the switches in same AS number, which will be 64,000. These are the IP addresses that we will assign on the interfaces. So for leaf 1, VTAP will be 1.1.1, and one thing, loopback address and VTAP address would be same. For leaf 1, the loopback address will be 1.1.1 and the VTAP will be 1.1.1.1. Here we will do the same thing with leaf 2 and then with leaf 3. Here we can see leaf 1 switch is here. So now I'll go into switch leaf 1. Here we can see the login is admin and the password is your password. Here we can see the password for the SONiC switch is your password. So I'll enter this. Here we can see we have entered into SONiC switch. So now I'll change the password using command sudo pass wd admin. New password would be SONiC. So now I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. Here we can see SONiC is an L3 switch and all the ports of SONiC are in layer 3 and all ports have assigned default IP addresses. Here we can see the default IP address of Ethernet 0 is 10.0.0.0/31. For port 4 is .2, .4 and so on. So now first of all I'll remove these default interfaces by using command sudo config interface IP remove Ethernet 0 10.0.0.0/31. So now for Ethernet 4 and then 0 to 4 for Ethernet 8 and then 6 for Ethernet 12. So now I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. Here we can see all the default IP addresses have been removed. So now here we can see for leaf 1 we will need 4 ports, port 0, 4, 8 and 12. So now assign IP addresses to these ports, port 0 and port 4. Here port 0 IP address is 11.1 and 4 is 12.1. So now sudo config interface IP add 192.168.11.1/24 11.1 and then 12.1 for 4 port 4, this is 12.1. So now we can see we'll use 2 VLANs, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 here. So now create 2 VLANs, sudo config VLAN add 10 and then 20. So now I'll check the status of VLAN table by using command show VLAN brief. So good, everything is fine. Here we can see I forgot to assign IP address to loopback 10. So now assign IP address to loopback 10 by using command sudo config interface IP add loopback 10 1.1.1.1/32. So now again I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. So now we can see all the IP addresses have been assigned. Here we can see, okay, IP address to loopback 10 have been assigned. So now I'll go into topology. Here we can see IP addresses have been assigned to VLAN interfaces. The IP address of interface VLAN 10 would be 10.254 and then 17.254 for VLAN 20. So now assign IP addresses to these VLAN interfaces by using command sudo config interface IP add VLAN 10 and then 192.168.10.254/24. Here you can see 10 and 17. So now repeat the same command for VLAN 20 and change the IP address, which is actually 17.254. So now again I'll see the VLAN table by using command show VLAN brief. Here we can see all the IP addresses and VLANs have been created. So now I'll go into here. We can see we will have to keep these interfaces or ports 8 and 12 untagged. So now I'll use command sudo config VLAN member add untagged 10 Ethernet 8 and then for Ethernet 12 I'll keep untagged for VLAN 20. So again I'll check VLAN table. So yes, okay, fine. So now I'll go into topology. Here we can see first part have been done. So now again I'll go into switch leaf 1. So now what I'll do, I'll create VxLAN interfaces and assign IP address to VTAP. So I'll use command sudo config VxLAN add VTAP 1.1.1 then sudo config VxLAN and then EVPN NVO add NVO VTAP. So now I'll use command sudo config VxLAN map add 1010. So for leaf 1 VLAN 10 is mapped with VNI 10 and for 20 it is assigned or mapped with VNI 20. So here sudo config VxLAN map add 1010, actually this is add VTAP 10 and then 10. So here what we are doing, we are actually mapping VLAN with VNI. VLAN is 10 and the VNI is 10. So again I'll repeat the same command. So now VLAN 20 is assigned or mapped with VNI 20. So now I'll check the VxLAN interface by using command show VxLAN interface. Here and we can see VxLAN interface have been created. VTAP name is VTAP. The 1.1.1 is actually a source IP. SIP means source IP. NVO name is NVO, and the source interface is loopback 10. So now I'll use command show VxLAN tunnel. Here we can see VxLAN tunnel have been created. Source IP is 1.1. Here we can see map name. So VLAN 10 is VNI 10. This is actually VNI. VNI 10 is mapped with VLAN 10, and for 20 it is with VLAN 20. So now I'll save all the things by using command sudo config save flag y. So now here we can see all the configurations are saved in /etc/etc/configdb.json file. It is actually a JSON file in which all the things are saved. Okay, so now what I'll do, so now I'll switch off this switch. Since all the things have been saved, or all the configurations have been saved, so now I'll switch off this switch. So I'm stopping this switch. So now I'll start this switch, which is actually leaf 2. So now why I am stopping this switch? Actually these switches consume a lot of resources like RAM and CPU. So now to work easily, I am stopping this switch leaf 1. After this I'll configure leaf 2, and then I'll stop this, and then I'll repeat the same steps one by one. So now I'll go into leaf 2. Here enter the login, which is admin. Password is your password. Now I'll change the password, sudo pass wd admin. Now new password, and then password, and then repeat the same password. So now here I'll repeat the same steps that I have done for leaf 1. So now I'll use command show IP interfaces. So now it will take some time. Actually all the ports are loading. Then again I'll check the status of IP interfaces. So now it will take some fraction of seconds. In the meanwhile I'll start this switch. So now here leaf 2. So now again I'll see the status of IP interfaces. So okay, it will take some seconds. Ports are loading. Don't know why it is taking so much time. So now show IP interfaces. Okay, so now all the ports have been up. or it is now showing. So here, as we can see here, all the ports have assigned default IP addresses. So now we will remove these default IP addresses by using command sudo config interface IP remove ethernet 0 10.0.0.0/31, and then for ethernet 4, and then .4 for ethernet 8, and then 6 for ethernet 12. So now again I'll check the status of IP interfaces. So now I'll assign IP address to these interfaces by using command sudo config interface IP add, and the IP address is 192.168. and the IP address is 13.1 92.168.13.1/24. So now for port 4, the IP address is 15.1. So now assign IP address to loopback 10 by using command sudo config interface IP add loopback 10 2.2.2.2/32. Oops, spellings of interface are wrong. So now again I'll see the status of IP interfaces. So here we can see everything is fine. All the IP addresses have been assigned. So now assign VLAN table or create VLAN table, sudo config VLAN add 10 and then VLAN 20, and then assign VLAN to ports and make them as untag, sudo config VLAN member add untag 10 ethernet 8, and then 204 ethernet 12. Then see the VLAN table, show VLAN brief. Here we can see, okay, everything is fine. So now assign IP address to VLAN interfaces, which is 10.253 and 17.253. Sudo config interface IP add VLAN 10 192.168.10.253/24, and then VLAN 20 for 17.253, and again see the VLAN table. So now okay, so now what I'll do, so now here we can see in the topology I'll create VxLAN, VTAPs, VxLAN interface, tunnel and everything. So VTAP is 2.2.2, sudo config VxLAN add VTAP 2.2.2.2, sudo config VxLAN, and then the command is EVPN NVO add NVO VTAP, then sudo config VxLAN map add VTAP 1010 VLAN to VNI mapping, VLAN 10 with VNI 10, and then VLAN 20 with VNI 20. It is actually mapping. So now I'll see the VxLAN interface by using command show VxLAN interface. Here we can see VTAP name is VTAP, source interface is 2.2.2, which is actually loopback interface IP. So source interface is SIP is loopback 10 and NVO name is NVO. Okay, so now I'll see the VxLAN tunnel by using command show VxLAN tunnel. So here we can see everything is fine. Source IP is 2.2.2, VTAP VxLAN name is VTEP, and this is actually a VLAN to VNI mapping. Okay, so now I'll save all these things by using command sudo config save by. Configurations have been saved in /etc/SONiC/configdb.json file. So now stop the switch. So now I start leave 3, which is actually in have been loaded. So now in the meantime I start spine 1 here. So now leave 3 here, admin, login is admin, the credentials are admin and your password sudo config pawswd admin, sudo pawswd admin, new, assign new password and retype new password. So now again I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. So now remove this default IP interface by using command sudo config interface IP remove 0.110.0.0.0/31, and then for port 4 it is actually .2, and then .4 port for port 8, and then .6 for port 12. So now assign IP address to these interfaces. Sudo config interface IP add, and then 192.168. I think 14.116.1. 14.116.1. So now 14.1 and then 16.1. 14.1 and then 16.1. So now assign IP address to loopback 10 by using command sudo config interface IP add loopback 10 3.3.3.3/32. So now I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. So all the IP addresses have been assigned. So now I'll assign IP address to VLAN interfaces, which is 10.252 17.252. Sudo config interface IP add VLAN 10 192.168.10.252/24 and then 17.252. So now again I'll check the status of IP interfaces. Here we can see. So now what I'll do, I'll create VLANs, sudo config VLAN add 10 and then VLAN 20. So now I'll check VLAN table, show VLAN brief. Sudo config. Sorry. Here sudo config interface IP remove. So now again I assign IP address 70.2 to VLAN 20. So now again check the VLAN table. So yes, now everything is fine. So now make port 8 and 12 as untagged and assign VLANs and with that ports. Sudo config VLAN member add untagged 10 Ethernet 8 and then Ethernet 12 with 20, and then again check VLAN table. So now okay. So now what I'll do now, I'll create VxLAN interface tunnel VTEP and then VLAN to VNI mapping. So now sudo config VxLAN add vtep 3.0.0.3 sudo config VxLAN EVPN NVO, add NVO name which is NVO, and then vtep name which is vtep. So now sudo config VxLAN map add vtep 10 VLAN to VNI mapping 10 with 10, and then VLAN 20 with VNI 20. So now I'll check the VxLAN interface by using command show VxLAN interface. Okay, so now I'll check the VxLAN tunnel, show VxLAN tunnel. Okay, fine. So now I'll save this configuration by using command sudo config save flag by. So now I'll go into topology. Here I'll stop this switch because all the things have been saved. So now I'll go into switch spine 1, and then I'll go into switch spine 2. I'll assign IP address only, and then I'll do further things in spine 1 and spine 2. Here I'm starting this. So now I'll go into spine 1. Here the login is admin, default password is your password, sudo pawswd change the password, new password, and then retype new password. So now sudo config interface IP remove ethernet 0 10.0.0.0/31, and then ethernet 4. Oops, okay, I think 3 ports would be enough. So now 024.4 for ethernet 8. So now I'll see the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. So now we can see all the default IP addresses have been removed. Ethernet 0, 4, 8, all the default IP addresses have been removed. So now I'll assign IP addresses to these interfaces by using command sudo config interface IP add ethernet 0 192.168.10. I think it would be 11.2, 13.2, 14.2, 11, 13, 14, 11.2, 11, 13, 14. Here 11, 13, 14. So ethernet 4, 11, 13, 14, ethernet 8. So now I'll check the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. Here we can see all the IP addresses have been assigned. So now save these things by using command sudo config save flag by. So now I'll stop this switch. Here I'm stopping this switch. So now I'll go into switch spine 2, and then I'll assign IP interfaces. Now admin, the default password is your password, change the password, sudo pawswd admin, new password, retype new password, and then sudo config interface IP remove ethernet 0 10.0.0.0/31, and then .2 for ethernet 4, and then .4024 for ethernet 8, and then assign IP addresses to these interfaces. Sudo config interface IP add 192.168.12, 15, 16, 12, 15, 16. Oops, actually it should be ethernet 0, 4, and then 8. Here Ethernet 0, 4 and then 8. Sorry for this. So now 12.2/24, and then for Ethernet 4, 12, I think, and then should be 15 and then 16, 15 and then 16. So now for Ethernet 8. So now save this thing, sudo config save flag y. Then I'll see the status of IP interfaces by using command show IP interfaces. So we can see here all the IP addresses have been assigned to these ports. So now what I'll do here, I'll go into topology. So now I'll start this switch leaf 1 again. So now I'm stopping this switch spine 2. So now what I have to do now I have to create VxLAN BGP EVPN, which is I'll configure BGP to solve ECMP. I'll use a command use for ECMP, and then after this I'll make leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3 as route reflector clients, and these spine 1 and spine 2 will be act as a route reflectors. So for all the switches, the AS number would be 64,000. So now I'll go into leaf 1 here, leaf 1 admin password, and then Vitaish, okay, router BGP 65,000. Here we can see BGP is running with default AS 65,100. So now I'll remove this default AS. No, router 65,100. So now router BGP 64,000. So now BGP best path, AS path, okay. Actually this command is used for ECMP. Actually here we can see we have two paths for leaf 1, port 0 and port 4. So ECMP will be used here. For this we have used a command BGP best path, AS path, multipath relax command. So now what I'll do, and now here we can see spine 1 and spine 2 are the neighbors of leaf 1. So now I'll use command neighbor 192.168 dot the neighbor is Ethernet 0, 168 11.2. The neighbor is 11.2. 192.168.11.2 remote AS 65,000. Oops, sorry, actually neighbor 64,000. So now again the neighbor is spine 2 and the Ethernet 0 is 12.2. And now we can see leaf 2, leaf 3 are also neighbors. Ethernet 0 of leaf 2 and Ethernet 4 will be used to form a neighborship with leaf 1. So now 13.1, 15.1, 13.1, 15.1, and then here we can see 14.1 and 16.1. 14.1 and then 16.1. Oops. Okay, so now we'll have to update the source for these switches, leaf 2 and leaf 3. For these interfaces, port 0 and 4, we will have to update our interfaces. For Ethernet 0 of leaf 2, we will have to update our source 11.1. So now here we can see for Ethernet 0 of leaf 2, we have to update the source Ethernet 0 of leaf 1, and in the same way Ethernet 4 of leaf 2, we will have to update the source of leaf 1, and we will use Ethernet 4 as update source. Here we can see Ethernet 0 with Ethernet 0, and then Ethernet 4 with Ethernet 4. So now neighbor 192.168.13.1, and then update source 192.168 and then 11.1, 13.1, and then for 15.1, 15.1, the update source will be 12.1. Okay, and then for I think 14.1, the update source will be 11.1, and then for 16.1, the update source will be 12.1. Okay, so now what I'll use command, I'll enter it into address family IPv4 unicast. I'll use command network 1.1.1/32. I am advertising this 1.1.1/32. So now exit. So now I'll enter into address family L2VPN EVPN. So now I'll use command neighbor 192.168.13.1 activate, and then 15.1 activate, and then 14.1 activate, and then 16.1 activate. So now I'll use command advertise all VNI. So now what I'll do, I'll save these things by using command WR. So now we can see all the configurations are saved in /etc/frr.bgpd.conf file. So now everything is fine. So now I'll go into switch leaf 2, and here I'll check the status of BGP by using command show BGP summary. Okay, show IP BGP. Okay, and then show EVPN VNI, show EVPN VNI detail. Okay, and now I'll go into switch leaf 2. Here the login is admin, password is SONiC, and then Vitaish. So now it will take some time, so all the daemons are reloading. So now we have to wait for just some seconds. and then Vitish. Okay, configuration mode, no router BGP 65100, router BGP 64000, BGP best path, AS path, and relax. And then neighbor 192.168, the neighbors are for leaf 2, the neighbors are Ethernet 4 spine 1, 13.2, 15.2, 13.2, 15.2, 13.2, 64,000, 13.2, 15.2, and then the neighbors are 192.168. The neighbors are 11 and 12, 11.1, 12.1, 11 and 12. So now, and then the neighbors are 14.1, 16.1, 14.1, 16.1. So now use command neighbor 192.168.11.1 update source 92.168. For 11.1 the update source will be 13.1. So will be 13.1. For 12.1 the update source will be 15.1. For 12.1 the update source will be 15.1. So now 14 and 16, 14, 14, and then 16. Okay, so now use command address family IPv4 unicast, and then advertise the network 2.2.2/32, and then exit address family L2VPN EVPN, and then neighbor 192.168.11.1 activate, 12.1 activate, 14.1 activate, and then 16.1 activate. So now advertise all VNI. In the meanwhile, I am starting this switch leaf 3 and use write command. So all the configurations are saved in /etc/frr/bgpd.conf file. So now here we can see the topology. Go into switch leaf 3. So now I'll go into switch leaf 3. Here login is admin, the password I have assigned is SONiC, and then Vitish. Okay, it is taking some time. Okay, just wait for some fraction of seconds. And now here I'm going to leaf 2. Here I'll check the BGP summary, show BGP summary. Okay, everything is fine. So now here we can see there are two different neighbors, one for BGP and the second for L2VPN EVPN neighbors. Okay, so now here I'll check show EVPN VNI detail. Okay, after doing all these things I'll explain each and everything one by one. And now I'll go into switch leaf 3. Here Vitish. Okay, configuration mode, no router BGP 65100, router BGP 64000, BGP best path, AS path, multi-path relax. This is actually a command used for ECMP. And then what I'll do, I'll use command neighbor 192.168. The neighbors for leaf 3 are actually 14.2, 16.2, 14.2, 16.2, and then neighbors are 11.1, 12.1, 11, 12, and the neighbors are 14, 13, 15, 13 and 15, 13 and 15. So now, okay, use command neighbor 192.168.11.1 update source. Update source will be 14.1, 16.1, 192.168.14.1, I think 14.1, yes, okay, 14.1, 16.1. okay, neighbor 11.1, then 12.1, it would be actually 16.1. so now for 13.1 update source will be 14.1, and then for 15.1 the update source will be 16.1. so now address family IPv4 unicast, advertise the network 3.3.3/32, exit, and then address family L2VPN EVPN, neighbor 192.168.11.1 activate, and then 12.1 activate, and then 13.1 activate, and then 15.1 activate. so now advertise all VNI, and in the meanwhile I'm starting the switch spine 1. so now use write command. I'll use command show BGP summary. okay, everything is fine. so now show EVPN VNI detail. okay, so now here we can see show EVPN VNI detail. Here we can see VNI is 10 and its type is L2. actually this is an L2 VNI, not a L3 VNI. VxLAN interface is VTAP 10, SVI interface is VLAN 10, local VTAP IP is 1.1.1.1. so now as we have seen on leaf 1 two VNIs have been configured, VNI 10 and VNI 20. here we can see VNI 20 type is L2. here the local VTAP IP is 1.1.1.1. so now what I'll do here, I'll go into topology, I'll go into switch spine 1. here admin, password is SONiC. so now Vitish configuration, no router BGP 65100, router BGP 64000, and then BGP best path, AS path, multipath relax. so now and then what I'll do, I'll use command BGP best path, AS path, and then after that what I'll do, I'll make neighbors. leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3 are the neighbors of spine 1, and the ports will be Ethernet 0 of leaf 1, Ethernet 0 of leaf 2, and then Ethernet 0 of leaf 3. here what I'll do, neighbor 192.168. the neighbor is neighbor spine 1 is 11.1.11.1, remote AS 64000, and then the neighbor is 13.1, 13.1, and then the neighbor is 14.1, 14.1. So now what I'll do here, we can see there is a term route reflector client. In this spine leaf topology, leaves will act as a route reflectors client and spines will act as a route reflectors. So now I'll make leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3 as route reflector clients. So now in the meanwhile I am starting spine 2. So now neighbor 192.168.11.1 route reflector client. So now 13.1 and then 14.1. So now address family IPv4 unicast a network. Here I will have to advertise all these networks that are attached with spine 1, 11.0, 13.0, 14.0, 11, 13, 14. 11.0, 11, 13, 14, 11, 13, 14. So now what I'll do, I'll exit out and then address family L2VPN EVPN. I will not advertise the VNIs because VNIs are not advertised on spine switches. What I'll do, I'll use command neighbor 192.168.11.1 route reflector client, and then 13.1, 11.1, 13.1, and then 14.1. So now exit right. So now I'll go into switch spine 2. Here I'll repeat the same things. Admin password is SONiC with Taish. Configuration mode no router BGP 65100, router BGP 64000, and then BGP best path AS path multipath relax. Neighbor 192.168. The neighbors for spine 2 are Ethernet 4 of leaf 1, Ethernet 4 of leaf 2, and then Ethernet 4 of leaf 3. 12.1, 12.1 remote AS 64000, 12.1, 15.1, 12.1, 15.1, and then 16.1, and then 16.1. So here we can see. Now I'll make these neighbors as route reflector clients by using command neighbor 192.168.12.1 route reflector client, 12.1, and then 15.1, and then 16.1. So now address family IPv4 unicast, and then network 192.168. I'll have to advertise all the networks that are attached with spine 2, 12, 15, 16, 12, 15, 16, 12, 15, 16. So now what I'll do, exit out, address family L2VPN EVPN. So now neighbor 192.168.12.1 router reflector client, 12.1, 15.1, and then 16.1. so here and then right. So now what I'll do here, I'll go into switches before going into other switches, I'll check the status, show BGP summary. So now here use the command show BGP summary. Okay. So now I'll go into PCs. I'll start these PCs. I'll assign IP address to these PCs. After assigning IPs, I'll go into leaf 1, leaf 2, leaf 3 to check the status of remote VTAPs, remote MACs and all the stuffs. So now I'll go into PC1, IP 192.168. the IP is 10.2 192.10.2/24, gateway is 192.168.10.254, and then PC2 17.2, IP 192.168.17.2/24, 192.168.17.254. So now I'll go into PC3, assign IP address. The IP is 10.3, IP 192.168.10.3/24, 192.168.10.253. So now I'll go into PC4, 17.3, IP 192.168.17. PC4 17.3 3/24, 192.168.17.253, and then go into PC5. Here the IP address is IP 192.168.10.4. I think the IP address is 10.4/24, 192.168.10.252, and then PC6. So now IP 192.168.10.252/24, 192.168. 10.4/24, 192.168.10.252. So now show IP. Okay, 10.4, 10.252. Show IP 10. Oops, I made a mistake. IP 192.17.4 and then 17.252. So now I'll again check the status of IP. Okay, show IP. Okay, show IP. Yeah, everything is fine. 10.3, 10.2, 17.73, and then show IP 772.254. Okay, show IP. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll ping 192.168.10.3. okay, everything is fine. Actually these are in same subnet and VLAN. So 10.3 and then 10.4. okay, everything is fine. So now what I'll do, I'll generate a ping request for 17.3. okay, here we can see for this subnet the TTL is 64 because it is actually in same subnet, and for 17.3 the TTL has been decremented by 1, which is 63, because 17.3 is another subnet. So now 17.3 and then 17.4. okay, so now here we can see in spinal architecture, it is actually a two hop architecture. So in this topology, here we can see the everything is fine. So now I will go into switch leaf 1. Here I will exit out. I'll use command show VxLAN interface. Show VxLAN remote VTAP. Here we can see for leaf switch 1 the source IP is 1.1.1 and the DIP, the remote IP, is 2.2.2. Here we can see for leaf 1 the VTAP is 1.1.1 and it has to learn the remote VTAPs or the destination VTAPs of leaf 2 and leaf 3. The remote VTAP for leaf 1 is 2.2.2, which is actually VTAP of leaf 2, and leaf 3 VTAP is 3.3.3. So now here we can see, and the here to learn VTAPs, remote VTAPs, the protocol or extension is used, which is actually EVPN, is used to learn the remote VTAPs 2.2.2 and then 3.3.03. Here we can see it is showing the operation status as down. Actually this is not down, it is actually up. As we have seen, PC1 is receiving a response from every PC. Here it seems like that it is not operationally up, but actually it is up. It is not operation down. It is actually a bug in SONiC. On the display it shows operational down, but at the back end it is actually up. So now show VxLAN remote VTAP. Remote MAC all. Here we can see the main thing of asymmetric VxLAN fabric is in this topology, remote MAC of the destination host are learned. In asymmetric VxLAN fabric, which is actually L2VPN, the remote MAC addresses of these hosts are learned. Here we can see these are actually the remote MACs of host. How? Here we can see the remote MAC of host 3 is 02. So now here the remote MAC is 02, and here we can see host 3 is on VLAN 10. Here we can see VLAN 10 is used, and the remote VTAP is 2.2.2, and we can see the host 2 is attached with switch leaf 2. So everything is fine. So now here we can see the remote MAC of host 4. The remote MAC of host 4 is 03. Here we can see the remote MAC of host 4 is 03, and it is actually present on VLAN 20. Here we can see VLAN 20, and it is actually attached with leaf switch 2, and the VTAP is 2.2.2. So now PC5, we can see the remote MAC is 04. So now 04, and it is on VLAN 10, and it is attached with switch leaf 3, and the remote VTAP is 3.3.3. Here we can see everything is fine. Asymmetric VxLAN fabric is working successfully, and in this topology the remote MACs of the destination host are learned using EVPN fabric. So now I'll go into Vitish. Here I'll check the show EVPN VNI detail. Here we can see the remote VTAPs for this VNI is 2.2.2 and 3.3.3, and it is showing head and replication here. It is actually a type of VxLAN to learn the remote VTAPs. It is actually flooding, a type of flooding. Actually it is not a ARP flooding, it is head and replication. So now here we can see the max local and remote known for this VNI is 4. For VNI 2 the local max are 2 and then the remote max are 4. So now VNI 20 the type is L2 and then okay. So now I'll use command show EVPN show BGP L2VPN EVPN. So actually these are route types, type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. So everything is working fine. So now show IP BGP, here we can see show IP BGP, show IP route. Here it is actually a list of all the routes on leaf 1. So B mean BGP routes, B mean BGP routes, the routes which are learned through BGP. So now show BGP neighbor. Here we can see it is actually a whole list of neighbors. So everything is fine. So now I'll go into leaf 2, exit, show VxLAN remote VTAP. Oops. So it is working fine. The source IP is 2.2.2, which is actually a loopback IP for leaf 2, and the destination IP is 1.1.1 and then 3.3.3, which are remote VTAPs, and the extension used to learn these VTAPs is EVPN. This is actually MP BGP extension. So now for leaf 3, exit, show VxLAN remote VTAP. So we can see the source IP is 3.3 and the VTAPs is remote VTAPs 1.1.1 and then 2.2.2.2. So now I'll go into spine 1. Here I'll check the show IP route. As here we can see the spine 1 has learned all the loopback routes 1.1.1, 2.2.2, 3.3.3, which are actually BGP routes. So now show IP BGP, okay, and then here show IP BGP and then show IP route, and then here I'll use the command show EVPN VNI detail. As here we can see on spine 1 it is not showing any EVPN VNI detail. The reason is that in spine leaf topology the main role of spine 1 is to just forward the traffic. No VxLAN interface tunnel VTAP is created on spine. All the thing is done on leaf switches. So thank you guys for watching my video. If you want further videos like this, do subscribe my channel.